So what we'll do now is to have a talk or a group debate on a couple of the issues that we have touched here today. So I have two questions. We will put it together instead of having two different group discussions. So two questions which I hope you would take in groups, and if there's a couple of tables where there are very few people, we could maybe you could go to a table with also few people, and you would be more people. I like to make instructions really to the point. So the questions that you would try to discuss here is first question, what the main challenges are in adult education to develop social impact measurement tools for social enterprises. So we have already touched a few of the challenges that is there. What is social actually after all? What is it we want to measure, and how should we measure, and why should we measure? Try to have a discussion in groups, and please put in the 4 or 5 main challenges that you find there would be to trying to measure social impact. We will collect them afterwards and maybe write them together. The next question is how we could further the development of common impact measurement models in the Baltic Sea region. Please also give some inputs on the piece of paper here to where you see possibilities, and maybe also which methods you think would be the best to use in a common, like for a common model in the Baltic Sea region. And we would do it like this, that you get the questions now, then you have a half an hour or 40 minutes.
20 minutes for each question.
20 minutes for each question, or you decide yourself. And then we would have a short roundup, and afterwards we will have Christian to tell about a Danish project with a social return on investment together with the Danish Business Authority, I think it's called. And then hopefully Jan will have flown down from Amsterdam, landed in Copenhagen airport, and come to this place and be able to give his presentation. So let's pray that the social enterprise guardian angel will help us, and then we'll start the group discussion.
And I think that is what everybody's trying to do, coming with their different. For some it is amount of books read by a student in 1 year. For some it's about the grades. For some it's about the long-term effect that they are actually getting at work. For some it's actually about having acquired knowledge that can make better work. For some it's about getting a grade that will get into the university. Knowledge is not part of the equation. That's how it works traditionally. They both get and what is knowledge? Then I would ask myself.
Yes. I hope you've had a nice discussion, and we will try to make a small roundup, and afterwards go to Christian's presentation on the Danish situation. But I would open up the floor for any comments, or we can simply take the tables one at a time. If you have inputs, let me hear if someone volunteers, or I have to go. Yeah.
We start?
We start with.
All right. I think we started off with discussing what is actually impact measurements, and then we had a long discussion about what and how you measure it. And I think what we are sort of where we reach a consensus is that measurement is context dependent, and trying to develop a generic format or set of indicators might be a challenge, and that instead you try to approach at the same time that it's necessary, because you have investors, you have different stakeholders who need a common language. So it's a fine balance between leaving space for the context-dependent indicators, whilst keeping a language that all stakeholders can understand. And we've seen some examples, we think, today, for example, with Reach for Change, who try to mix some more generic indicators, but then on the outcomes and long-term effects, that you need to be able to go down to the human being and how they are affected, which might be difficult to quantify through some models.
Yes. Have you reached some sort of conclusion, or?
I left the conclusion with
Peter?
With the first question, I guess our conclusion is that this is something that is very difficult, and it's really difficult to set a fixed standard for this, but we have to try, and we have to aim low in the beginning, because if you do this too complex, the KPIs will become distorted, and you just need humility to watch this field.
And maybe patience.
And patience.
Yes, Lars?
Well, first I would apologize for not being here this morning, so the question I put now might be very silly or answered several times. But it struck me by both the questions that when you measure something, you have to know what it is. So what is social impact? And then you have to know, how do you define that? Could that be generically for every field, or is it specifically connected to a certain sector or certain questions? And therefore I asked whether you came across the concept of social quality, which is a measurement in sociology, the field of how to, say, take the temperature of the quality of the social unit. And if you don't know that, then it might be a new field of interest for your organization, social quality, a concept developed in sociology. And so I sort of missed the basis of how to define and understand social impact. And after that, having understood that, then you could take off measurement tools and methods.
Yes,
so it might be answered, and therefore I apologize, but I think it's pretty sensible.
I think that it could be a valuable add to the row and the diversity of models, actually. Now you mention it, and I'm not sure that very many thought about it, actually, because it's a different professional field. Many people working with the social impact measurement have sort of a economic outspring, so to speak. So to have the social or sociological issue strengthened more would probably be an enrichment of this problem of measuring. Yeah, so interesting.
We actually discussed exactly something related to that, and that is to be able to work on measurement. We need to understand social impact. What do we mean by social impact? And there are so many different segments. We talk environment, social, cultural. So what is social impact, and what does it contain in all these different segments? Then we went to discussing values. That maybe social impact is related to values. So what kind of values do you want to aim for? So basically, we think that we need a new framework consisting of values. Let's just say for the Baltic region, for the countries, for us to be as a beginning.
Yeah, Peter.
And yeah.
And to add to that, we also talked about the answer to this question may be very simple, because sometimes you work with a government body or an organization who already have defined this. So if you work with a municipality, the Department of Employment saying, we need people to get jobs, it's always good, I mean, obviously in collaboration with whomever is reading or showing interest, or most importantly financing your venture or your social impact bonds, ask them what is value to you, because they may have a very clear definition of what their value is. So sometimes that question may be easier because the financier already have defined this.
So you mean that it's easy if the impact is the solving of a question, of a problem, like if a public body has a problem and you solve it, it's social impact.
Yes, that said, I know at least in Denmark many government bodies are not really good at defining this themselves. And this brings the whole debate about new public management and can we quantify everything. So that gets complicated on another level. But I mean, if you have a municipality with a budget X amount of money to get people jobs, that could make the framework more framed, so to speak, or easier to define, or they may already have defined what they want to accomplish with the resources they have.
Yeah. You have a question, Morten?
Well, just a small addition to that. We were also talking about the role of the authorities, that whether their definitions are right or wrong, they are already there to some extent. Whether you are a municipality, or a governmental body, or a capital fund, the questions you ask for, or the measurements you ask for, that's already a standard that is present today. That's what you have to then go and challenge if you have to, like you said, build more on a value-based system.
Yeah, I mean, we are already challenging the BNP model, just debating this. So, Max?
Yeah, on that was the more ideological thought around this. That is, what are the norms? Who defines adult education? What is education? What is knowledge? Why there are other discussions, like on a European level or on a Western society level, or is it the PISA results that are, is that good education? So it's also, you could question all the way up to norms, what is good education, and is it about getting someone good grades to get into university, or is it actually the knowledge that is produced within the human being so that they can become productive individuals in a society, or is it to make there are many spheres that you could explore this question within, and not doing so, not challenging things. It's not just going with the norms. Might be
just to ask the question is to challenge. Just to mention the name social value is to challenge, in a way you could say. And that's the whole idea, actually. It's to bring up a debate on values, on impact, as a alternative or a supplement to what we're doing right now. Richard?
Adding to that, then please fill in or come with suggestions. That we talked also about, if you say here, what are challenges to develop tools? Before a tool, there might be a theory or a standard somehow. So there is also a part that has to be more aligned throughout the education. That I could hear from some of people here who has been part of the education system recently and studied those areas, that there's a lot of theories that are very conceptual and very intellectual, but there are not many proof of concepts of those theories, and which could lead proof of concept, then could lead to standard, and if you start to get a standard, then you can actually develop tools that give a meaning. Because there are tools for a lot of theories, but there is also a lot of theories going on, so you are, as a student or a user, could be a little bit confused on what tools to use for my project or for my business when trying to define it, what kind of impact the project or the business does. So maybe work towards from theories towards more standards, and then get some aligned tools for those standards.
Yeah.
Is that totally out of scope?
No, pretty much also defining the term, because if you want to understand what's the definition of social entrepreneurship, if you Google it, you get over 20 authors writing their own definition.
Mm.
Like, okay, which one should I pick if I'm going to start my own startup related to, social change? So it's quite challenging in that sense to first tackle the definitions and then go into the other steps.
Yes. Lars?
Just one piece of information. Of course, Wikipedia or other sources could be valuable, but actually it is existing right now a very solid framework for defining what a social enterprise is, what social entrepreneurship is. It's defined by a European group of sociologists and politologists and other social scientists in the network called EMES. They have made several conferences on how to define their, say, basic framework of talking about social entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurs, social innovation. They try to gather all possible European definitions, compare them with US definitions, trying to come up with a solid, very documented base for how to talk about this. So, of course, you're right that you can come up with several definitions, but why don't take the work which already has been done? Is, I think, as I recall it, some about 12 or 14 indicators in their framework defining some social qualities, economic qualities, and personal individual qualities, trying to define this social quality, and from there on, how to define social entrepreneurship, social impact, and so forth. So I think there's a body of knowledge which could be taken up by this group to proceed.
Yes. Beata?
One short thing to it. Yes, we also work on this AMS criteria, but I think the problem is that each country has different legal framework,
Yes.
and they don't work exactly towards AMS. No. It's usually much not so wide understand by the legal framework. So we in our countries have to work with it, how it is defined by our authorities to trust. So this is the issue, that it's not so easy to find this common ground.
It's true, like the Danish legal framework, for example, has 5 indicators of how you define a social enterprise, and the EMES definition consists out of 9, at least 9 central points. So somehow it's difficult to, when you have a legal body that defines it in this specific way, to introduce the EMES model. But you can, I mean, it's also a matter of extending the vision to make it more whole. Like I agree that actually it's not just to return profits and have a social purpose and so on, but and have a business going on. It's also a matter of the bigger picture, like how is this to be put in a context where you benefit the whole world. When we talk about social value, we don't just mean that a certain target group get a job. We mean that it's a benefit for the whole humanity, actually. Adriana had a...
Yeah, I just wanted to say, yes, if I'm in Europe and I'm starting a company here, I would definitely consider the European framework. And if I'm a social entrepreneur coming from South America, do I really want to follow this European framework, considering our local context, the cultural factor is completely different. So globally, yes, maybe a global framework, but then considering not only the social, economic and environmental, but also the cultural factor, right? Of how it works in that context.
I think it's the same if you take sustainability as the biggest word, you could say, or the biggest context. it's also what is sustainability? Is it to get a tomato from a Danish producer who produces or grows these tomatoes inside a house, warming them in the winter, or is it to buy it from Italy and had it with a car driven up here? It's actually then more sustainable in that sense to buy the tomato from Italy, because there's a bigger energy use in a Danish production. So for sure, to see sustainability and social impact and social value in a local context and a global context at the same time would be very important. But we have a long story about sustainability and the Brundtland report and Rio 2092, and so we actually could build on this on these experiences and incorporate them in this kind of work. We don't need to start from sort of scratch and think what is social value, because we have a large piece of work have been going on already in both environmental, social and economic sense to make a sustainable world. So it's sort of a matter to integrate this in this kind of work. I think that was also what you were sort of saying, Richard, in the line you were picking up. Jan, Linus?
Well, maybe we can just pick up on that, because that touches also upon the discussion we had in our group. That of course it would be much easier, let's just agree upon this definition for the system. But of course before they did that definition, there was another definition that they didn't build upon. So of course be able to define something is also a very powerful tool. And I guess in social entrepreneurship now, everything from very neoliberal ideas to even social movement and Marxist like movement is trying to define themselves. And of course, they have a very different definition, so it's about that way. And I think this also relates to the measurement idea that if you just could agree upon what's social value, it would be so easy just to make very sophisticated measurements, and we wouldn't have this discussion in a way. But I guess that's a good thing as well, that we still discuss what social value is all about somehow. And I don't know if we ever going to agree upon that. Anyway, I don't know if we even should. Maybe.
Time is up, and I think I will finalize with an Einstein quote, who once said, "The important thing is not to get the answer; it's actually to put the question." So that's what we do, and that's where we could leave it, so to speak, that we have just planted a question or a lot of questions, and I hope that the debate and the dialogue will continue in the coffee breaks and the coffee breaks after this conference and on the train back home and wherever you will go. And there will be a little time later also when Jan has the presentation to ask questions and to debate a little bit also.